Romantic love. In patriarchy society, women naively seek romantic love due to societal conditioning. We have been conditioned from birth through different avenues, such as through the magazines we read, through the books we buy, and the films we watch. Women naturally seek connection in relationships, while men seek casual sex with sexually objectified women. More men are in relationships and marriages with women because it gives them access to regular sex.
We hear stories about like sexless marriages or long-term relationships, and we assume that it's always the woman's fault. That is often the case, but it's definitely not always the case. Sometimes guys can lose their sexual attraction to their wives, not because they get old or they gain a bunch of weight or they stop putting effort into their appearance, but because they love them.
What do you mean by that?
They call this the Madonna Whor complex in psychology. It's like, it's actually hard to take somebody that you love, not just the body, like the person inside the body that you love and cherish and care for, and bend her over her hard. It's really hard to do that. It's really hard to do that to the mother of your children and your sacred wife. Do you understand? It can be. And so what I'm saying is that like they kind of have to have this switch in their mind where sometimes they have to be able to just objectify a woman in order to bend her over and give it to her real good.
I need us to think. I need us to think so bad. So badly. We need to start thinking. First, we have to stop believing that the thing he just described is some biological or inherent thing within men and start seeing it as a cultural thing we've been taught to believe based on our genders. And because we keep acting out on it and no one's calling it out and no one's challenging it, it becomes a cycle that feels like nature. Ultimately, in order for this to make sense, you'd have to admit a few things. First, you'd have to admit that you don't believe sex is a pleasurable or intimate act you share with a person. You'd have to see it as this guilty or shameful or harmful act done between two people. Secondly, you'd have to see it as a thing you do to a person, not something you do with a person. All right. And lastly, you'd have to admit that men have sex with objects, not people. Right? Because that's what he said. The man has to have a switch in his mind where he has to objectify his wife in order to give it to her real good. But let's break this down even further using his own words. All right. So this is the mother of your kids as well as your wife. Okay. So this is a person you met, dated, proposed to, married, had kids with, and then you reach the point of not being attracted to them anymore because you saw the humanity in them and you can no longer have sex with them. Okay. Which means throughout 1 through 5 of meeting them, dating them, marrying them, having kids with them, and all these different things, you saw her as an object to do all these things with. And then you got to the point of like, wow, you're a human. You have thoughts, you have feelings, you have opinions. Huh. Who would have thought? You waited until you did all of that and then got to the point of saying, wow, I can't do this to you anymore because you're a real person. I didn't know. My fault. I should never got married with you, had kids with you, and all these different things because I see you human now. I'm sorry. My bad. What are we saying? What are we saying?
If you define real love not by a feeling of being enamored and infatuated, if you define real love by the ability to be robust in the relationship together, to continue to give to it in a consistent way, to be able to stand the test of time and weather differences and show up for each other in spite of those differences, if we define real love by that, then the only, and I should add into that, the feeling accepted by somebody else, the only way to arrive at a place of knowing that you have real love by those definitions is to do all of the things we're afraid to do when we like someone a lot.
Humans nowadays, we're too into words. We just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And a classic thing in the seduction realm will be a man or a woman saying, I love you. Like, when will they say, I love you? Is a big deal. And all I try and tell in the book is that's not the language of love. That's not the language of seduction. It's something non-verbal. You have to learn this new language of seduction. It has nothing to do with words. It's in your body language. It's in your actions. When the other person feels that you love them.
Hello fam, how you all doing? Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. In this video, we will be discussing how men use romantic love to control women. As women, our deeply conditioned belief in romantic love keeps us in an abusive relationship, you might want to check out this book, The Illusion of Love. This book speaks about reasons why women in domestic violence situation refuse to leave their partner. They still believe they love their partner. Even in an abusive situation, some women will always look for a deeper meaning when they say a man really loves them. Why should you call an abuse love? How can a man really love you when he fails to live up to any kind of basic human standard? You often see women make excuses like, oh, he's going to change. Oh, I will help him. Oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. Like the man is a baby.
People who have bought into this, we were talking about the Earth School, think that romance is what love really is.
Romance is not love. Love is far deeper, more powerful, and it doesn't wear off.
And romance is going to wear off.
Romance is going to wear off.
Guaranteed.
Because romance is the projection of beautiful qualities within yourself onto another person. It is looking for another person, in other words, to bring into your life what you need and have for yourself, but want from another person. So you see that other person as beautiful or charming, intelligent, gregarious, caring, sexual, sensual, and yet you yourself are all of these things, but instead of cultivating a caring, gregarious, lovingly sexual person yourself, you look for that in someone else.
Hey, Jim, how do I stop falling in love with the idea of someone?
I like this question, mostly because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. So the more that you fantasize about the future that does not currently exist, the more you make it real. This is what manifestation is. However, in a relationship, if you're fantasizing about what marriage with kids and a house in the country looks like without paying attention to what's happening in this present moment, then you're falling in love with something that it doesn't exist, and you're probably put too much attachment on that person. So how do you stop? Is looking at exactly what's happening in the here and now. Stay present and don't move too far into the future until it happens.
So romantic love is not really conducive to successful relationships, like by design. That until a certain point in human history, no one really considered that kind of love to be a positive experience. It's like there's a reason the Greeks said that he was pierced by Cupid's dart. Like you were shot. No one thinks being shot is a positive experience that they should go out and get for themselves. But in general, people who fell in love, it's a fall. It's a fall from grace, it's a fall from sanity, and are generally treated with, let's say, a pitiable indulgence because it's not really their fault. They couldn't help it. They're not in their right mind. But no, not for me, thank you. What changed is that we now, in most parts of the world, consider romantic love not only to be a positive and something that all people should want and seek out, but potentially the most important experience or the most important goal that a human being can aspire to, which is insane. It's totally crazy. It's like basically saying, from the perspective of the Greeks, that the best thing you could possibly be is depressed. Like, the Greeks saw limerence as a mental illness. And within that context, people striving and seeking out romantic love and the one and their soulmate, and it's like seeking out a distortion. It's seeking out a disease. Okay? And these Cathars were a sect of Catholics, a sect of Christians who believed certain things about love and marriage. In particular, they believed that people should not get married. Fun fact is that marriage only really became a Catholic sacrament much, much later than people think. Like, it wasn't until around this time, in the 15th century, that marriage became one of the official Catholic sacraments. Before then, it wasn't. In fact, there's a long tradition in Catholicism about not marrying. I mean, the Pope doesn't get married, does he? None of the apostles got married. Jesus didn't get married. Paul talked about how he wishes that all men would be like him, unmarried. world is a world of imperfection. It's a world of flaw. It's a world of tragedy. Why bind your heart to another mortal creature who will fail you? The only thing that you can trust is God, and we'll meet him in the life beyond, so let's not create any unnecessary attachments here on earth.
Some women's belief in romantic love overrides their horrific relationship experiences. It overrides the fact that they've been beaten in that relationship, they've been raped in that relationship, and it also overrides the psychological torture they've received in that relationship. As a woman, we've been conditioned from childhood to believe that if we can't find a man to romantically love us, it means that there's something obviously wrong with us. We have also been taught and made to believe that we are incomplete human beings without the love of a man. So therefore, it makes sense for we women to remain in a relationship that is not serving us, to suffer in a relationship with the hope that one day that man might give us romantic love.
Women are not supposed to fall in love with men, because when you fall in love with men, you act stupid. You have women who are going 50-50 with men, and then they still wash and cook for the men. You have women who a man call them at 10 o'clock in the night and act like they're in love with them, and after they get the kitty cat, the man leave, and then they don't hear from the man again for months. And then that same man will come back again and call them at 10 o'clock and act like they love them for kitty cat, and they forgive the man. You have women who give up their hopes and dreams, work to support the man, and when the man get rich and famous, the man leave them for somebody else. You have women who takes a man into their home, their house. The man don't pay any bills, right? The man just sit around, the man drive their car, eat their food, and the man treat them like shit, and they accept it. You have women who the man cheat on them over and over again, and the more the man treat, the more submissive they become. You have women who financially takes care of men, give their man the money, their card, they're buying love. You have women who works for years, right, doing everything that the man wants, being the good woman, hoping for the man to marry them, waiting to have babies because the man is not ready, and then the man leave them, right, married a woman between 6 months and then start a family. And the reason for this is because, woman, you're acting out a character. You are acting unlike yourself. A woman is not supposed to fall in love with their man. They're supposed to fall in love with themselves, and then the love flow from them and the man fall in love with them. But because you're acting out a character, you end up in toxic, unhealthy relationship, codependent relationship where man treat you like bad. So woman, you are supposed to fall in love with yourself, and then what overflow from you goes to the man, and the man fall in love with you. So stop acting out of character and start to act like yourself.
I don't want to say love is a lie, but the whole idea of love has been weaponized against women in order to get us to provide labor for free or without any kind of recognition or acknowledgement. Like if someone's a chef and they cook food for people, that's a job, and they're compensated for it and they're appreciated for it. If someone is a nanny and they take care of children, that's a job and they're compensated for it and appreciated for it. If someone is a SW or even a mistress, they're usually compensated and appreciated for it. But when you become a wife, when you become a mother, you are not compensated or appreciated for any of these things. I don't have a good relationship with my mother. And the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, oh, okay. Even though I don't think she was a very good mother, it makes a lot of sense why she wasn't a good mother. Because what a thankless, shitty job for 98% of women who occupy it. And we're supposed to do it all with a smile on our face because love. Because you love your children. That's why you take care of them. Because you love your husband. That's why you married him. That's why you feed him. That's why you pick up after him. That's why you forgive him. That's why you're romantic with him, even if you don't feel like being romantic with him. Because he has needs and you love him, and it's your job to fulfill them. It's your job to bend over backwards for your husband and your children because you love them, and that's your reward. If you date men, it's supposed to be because you're trying to find love. Any other reason would be shallow, and you're a shallow, vapid bitch if you have any other intention or reason to want to date a man. Men, on the other hand, well, they have to ease into love. They're not so prone to love. They're visual creatures. They want someone who's super young. They want someone who's super hot. You know, love isn't so much their thing. Sure, they love their children, but not like a mother could love their children. Sure, they love their wives, but not like a woman loves a man. You see how love implicates women and lets men off the hook? Now, again, I'm not saying love doesn't exist, but kind of like religion, it started off being a quintessential part of being a human being and a very real thing, and it was hijacked and weaponized against the people that it was made to oppress.
Being financially independent as a woman doesn't guarantee us from the risk of experiencing an exploitative romantic relationship. To understand this better, we must understand where the notion of romance started, which is from 18th century Europe, where low-class men who had nothing to offer a woman used romance, love, as a way to hook in upper-class women, get financial and societal leg up. Were these men actually in love with the women? Absolutely not. Marriage was always a financial contract without the concept of love. These men were always stuck marrying women from their own class or lower. It was a way to exploit an upper-class woman, patriarchal trauma and oppression, appealing to her unmet needs of attention, care, being seen, being heard, then capitalistically used to continue to oppress and brainwash women. In the beginning, it was theater that reflected the concept of romance. Then it became music, movies, what we consider now pop culture. Even though our dating changes as a woman who has financial means, unless you learn to become emotionally independent, you still don't know your own value. And you give away yourself like you're nothing to broke-ass, dusty, crusty men who will have no issue exploiting you in every which way. The concept of romance was born to keep women seeking, suffering for, and staying in this fantasy called love.
Let's talk about the invention of romantic love. The patriarchy system is responsible for that. The patriarchy invented romantic love as a psychological cage with the aim of keeping women in their places until death. They invented romantic love to continually have control over women. Centuries ago, women were controlled through economics. They were forced to be financially dependent on the patriarch. The only way women could survive those days was for them to be sold to a patriarch as a wife, or be sold to a patriarch as a slave, or a worker that receives peanuts as earnings. Over time, this form of control has been watered down as more women can now earn living through training, education, and skills. Over the years, women have been sold so many lies regarding relationship and men. We've been told that there are men out there for every woman, men who will love us, protect us, and nurture us forever. Is that really the case?
Ladies, this information that I'm about to share in this video is being suppressed. Every time I make a post about the origins of things like marriage and romantic love, those posts never get more than a few thousand views. And that's by design, because this information is groundbreaking and the patriarchy doesn't want you to have access to it. If you learned something in this video, please like, comment, share, repost. Get this information out there, ladies.
Romantic love was really invented by lower status men for lower status men, so that they might be able to compete with higher status men in the sexual marketplace for women. Because they didn't have the resources and the status and the opportunity that most women are looking for in their partners, they invented an intangible romantic love that they argued was even more special and valuable than all of that mere stuff. It's kind of a spell that romantic lovers attempt to cast over their love objects. However, it's a tenuous, fragile spell that can really be broken at any time. So romantic love actually works only to the extent that the romantic lover succeeds in drawing the love object away from anything that would remind her, essentially, that the emperor has no clothes. Sort of attempting to draw the woman away from the world into this little universe of two, where everything that we need is in each other's eyes. Forget about everything else. Look only at me. It's a hypnotic spell whose objective is to lure the love object away from anything that could break the spell. That's why romance is generally a strategy for those who can't compete successfully in the world yet. A group that is overpopulated by young men. It's very, very hard to be a young man in this world, let me tell you. They're incompetent and inexperienced, so men can't do anything with them. And they're poor and low status, so women don't want anything with them. No young man is the king. And if they can't rule in the real world, one of their sexual strategies is to kind of hypnotize women with the fantasy of romantic love into following them out of the real world and into the universe of two, where he can be king. Do you understand now?
We've been bamboozled, ladies. We've been hoodwinked. Been tricked.
So I've seen this story circulating around social media the last couple of days about Shawnee O'Neal, who is the former wife of NBA player Shaquille O'Neal, saying that she doesn't know if she was actually in love with Shaq during their marriage. What I'm actually really surprised about is that so many other people are surprised by what she said. It is not shocking to me that someone would admit that they weren't actually in love with their spouse, because if anything, a lot of people get married and get into relationships for a whole host of other reasons that have nothing to do with love. You have to also remember that historically, marriage was never about romance. Marriage was never about being in love with someone and growing old together and being, life partners. Marriage was always about securing the bag, because at one point women didn't have any other options. Women were regarded as property. So you were essentially traded from your father to your husband. And then at some point we added romance into it and we romanticized all of it. And it leaves a lot of us really disappointed when we realize that marriage and relationships don't actually live up to the ideal that we have in our minds. Believe me, there are plenty of married couples who are happy in love, but there's also plenty of married couples who are miserable together, who are together because they can't afford to break up. And there are a lot of women and men who stay in marriages because of the financial and social benefits that it provides. That's just how it is.
Men decided to go through this psychological romantic route so they can manipulate women, control women, and have women doing their domestic chores for them without getting paid. Have women serving them as it used to be in the past before women gained freedom when it comes to earning wages. So they refused to let women go by looking for a different means. They decided to go through the psychological route. You would see a woman say she's in love with a man. Because she's in love with a man, she would clean for the man, spend her money on the man, do everything for the man. What then does she get in return? A man will cheat on her, a man will lie on her, a man will tell lies to her, a man will maltreat her, treat her anyhow, but she will still insist that she loves the man. Because she loves the man, she's going to be at the man's beck and call. Can't you see what is going on there? Do you get the point? Isn't that what the traditional marriage was all about? The gender role. Men in the past expected women to stay at home, clean, worship them, call them kings, be at their beck and call, while them themselves, they go out there and make the money while the woman depends on them financially. Like I earlier mentioned, women have moved past that. Women are now earning, but men are no longer getting those benefits. So they look for a way to still tie women down by bringing up this romantic love fallacy. Is it really love for you to constantly put other people's needs before yours and live life in a constant imbalance of domestic and environmental labor?
I am so not the only victim of the patriarchy here. When we recorded the podcast, I think I very much lived in that place of, oh, I'm the one who has suffered. I'm the one who's oppressed. We are both suffering from the same system. We are both victims here. It's so easy to, as like the overtly oppressed one, it's so clear that because I'm a woman, I have been suffering greatly because of the patriarchy. But I realized how important it is for me to remember that you, my partner, my husband, is also a victim of the same patriarchy and the same systems. And in the healing work that we've done together, both individually and as a couple, I've seen how you've had to wrestle with the messaging and the conditioning that the patriarchy put upon you as a young boy, and then a young man, and then a full-grown man. And you've had to go through so much healing and so much work to realize that you are not that. And to also realize that as long as I suffer from this, you will suffer from it. And that we truly need to be two wings of a bird, you know? We both need to thrive. And if you're thriving from a system and the other part of us isn't, then we're all suffering.
Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please click this video here to watch things you shouldn't tell a man as a lady. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.